Indivisible San Pedro member Karen Kostic Guerrero.
The local kid here. Okay, my question, I apologize, is lengthy, but please bear with me, okay? There are two 12.5 million gallon tanks of explosive liquid butane located on Gaffey Street in San Pedro. The Plains All-American facility was built in 1973 within the only earthquake rupture zone in the harbor area where converging faults have a magnitude of 7.3 potential. The butane tanks are within 1,000 feet of pre-existing homes and schools, with more than 600 homes under construction within a mile. The facility is on soil designated by the U.S. Geological Survey as landslide area and surrounded by areas designated as liquefaction. The butane is made at a refinery, then it's piped an additional 7 miles to the Plains facility, avoiding strict refinery storage rules and insurance costs. In 2018, site owner Plains was found guilty of 9 criminal charges for what Attorney General Xavier Becerra called reckless behavior in a major pipeline spill in Santa Barbara County. Shockingly, each of the butane tanks has a blast radius of more than 3 miles. A major accident would devastate both San Pedro, or LA, and Long Beach ports. The Department of Homeland Security identifies the facility as a Tier 1 soft target of terrorism. If elected, will you prioritize shutting this facility, removing what one of the country's leading disaster risk experts, Professor Emeritus Bob B. of UC Berkeley, has warned contains one of the most ripe, catastrophic potentials in America?
Thank you, Karen. That question is very long, so hopefully you guys got
Summarize.
the gist.
We want the tanks gone, okay?
Okay, we're gonna start with Congressmember Bass.
Well, what you just said scares me half to death.
It's very scary.
But I don't want to say what I would do if I have the honor of being elected mayor. I think one of the things that I bring to this table is the fact that I am still in Congress the rest of this year. I'd like to follow up with you and get your name and information now. I'm going back to DC tomorrow. I would like to raise this with the EPA and the DOJ because at least now we have an administration that will actually pay attention and cares about the environment and cares about the danger that that has. So please, I know that there's
Your
members of my...
colleagues, Barragan and Liu, are very aware of this.
Okay,
and
all right.
yeah.
Well, then I will go back and talk to them immediately, and we can go together. I serve on the Judiciary Committee. I have to deal directly with the Department of Justice. I think this is something that we need to move on immediately. So even though Barragan and Lou might have the information, I want your information too.
Okay. Thank you, Congressmember Bass.
And my question was long because not everybody here, other than Councilmember Buscaino, is closely related to this.
Right. Okay, so we're gonna move right along, and we are going to ask City Attorney Mike Fuhrer to answer next.
Hi, thanks very much, Karen. So the answer to your question is, as you know, local authorities are preempted from messing with the rail lines. So, right Karen, you're well aware of that. So that all roads do lead to the federal government, which has authority over these issues.
Right.
Now, so that would lead you to say, so as mayor, Mike, what are you going to do since the city doesn't have unilateral authority over this issue, right? Because I actually am well familiar with this problem here, and we've discussed this with the community because the community is frustrated over the failure of the city to be able to do anything. The city's hands are tied by these legal preemption issues, so what do? So the difference between being just the attorney for the city and being the mayor of the city is that those roads lead to Washington, and so do I. Look, if I lived in that immediate vicinity, I want the same thing, right? And that's the lens through which I view every decision that I make as mayor. That's what I do now as city attorney, what I did as city council member, or state assembly member. I want to know, if I lived in the community, what would I want? And if I lived in your community, I would want your mayor to deal directly with the relevant federal authorities to grapple with the issue of those rail lines, which are crucial to the outcome here. And I can do that. And I think one thing that's clear from this conversation is being mayor requires having a command of the details if you're going to have a vision for what could be, and then being able to commit to what to do given what's on the ground. And on this issue, when it comes to having a command of the details, every issue we're talking about, that's what, if you go to my website at MikeForLA.com, what you see is specific concrete plans of action. My plan of action here is to go to the federal authorities that govern rail and discuss what we can do, because this isn't an appropriate situation now. Thanks very much for your question.
Thank you so much, City Attorney. Okay, we're going to go right over to Councilmember Joe Buscaino.
Born and raised here. I have family who are in the shadows of these tanks. They do not belong here. I agree. And what we have here, and in talking to Karen briefly, we have private property, private land. And I'm not going to give the political answer that on day one, I'm going to shut these down. On day one, I'm going to do what I've already been doing, is trying to get these tanks gone. And here's how. I mean, we're members of Congress, as you've talked to, members of the state legislature, local leaders, we have all been gridlocked. Even if we plan on changing the zone, it's still allowable use. I got really close just middle of last year. I'm brokering a deal to get a developer to bring in a warehouse to shut down these tanks. Very close, and that fell through, unfortunately. What I have done is with the Marathon Integration Project. I've asked Marathon to shut the bloodline to have butane coming in and out of the two tanks. We've reduced it by 15%, and we have to do more. However, I can tell you, we have regulations at all levels of government. First day I got here, we brought in all levels of government, make sure that they are abiding by the law, make sure that they are safe. And it has been quite frustrating, because I well know that even my family who lives there are living in fear. Why don't we do this? Focus on renewable energy so we don't need those damn tanks.
Exactly.
That's the bottom line.
Okay, thank you, Council Member. And then last but not least, Council Member Kevin De Leon.
Thank you very much, Karen, for that very important question. I say shut it down and get it out, period. That's the bottom line. Listen, we saw what happened in Beirut 2 years ago. You had 218 people who died. You had 7,000 people who were severely injured. We saw what happened last year in Mexico City. We had many people, scores of individuals who were severely injured because of these types of explosions. This is a clear and present danger. Let me underscore the following. As you stated, then Attorney General Javier Becerra, fined most severely Plains All-American. And what Plains All-American is doing is not American, putting Pedro lives on the line because of the potential catastrophe that can ensue. So he sued them because of the oil leak explosion off the shores of Santa Barbara. I've already spoken with the Attorney General of the state of California, Rob Bonta, specifically on this issue. So I'm not waiting to become mayor of the city of LA to deal with this issue. I'm dealing with it right now because it's a clear and present danger to the public health of the people who live in the southern part of Los Angeles. Moreover, as you just mentioned, Homeland Security, it's a first tier, soft terrorist, target. That really doubly, triply, quadruply puts everyone in a very vulnerable position. And the issue with regards to federal Congress or preemption, well, I created a financial product called CalSavers that was preempted by the federal government. But I didn't wait for permission from Washington, D.C. to deal with ERISA, the Employment Retirement Individual Security Act 1974 that Congress enacted. I myself went to Washington, D.C. on numerous occasions without any statutory support whatsoever from the Congress. And guess what? Now we have the biggest retirement security plan in the history of the U.S. since the creation of Social Security. I didn't wait for federal Congress for permission on those issues. Just like I got sued by the Department of Justice, then Attorney General Jeff Sessions. And we went all the way to the appellate court, Ninth Circuit, as well as the U.S. Supreme Court. And they ruled in favor of my law that's constitutional. The point I want to make
I think that's your
is
time.
that you don't have to wait for preemption or Congress. You can do it right now as leaders, and that's what we should be doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next question is coming from